All right, so are you ready to unlock some brain-bending secrets?
I think so.
Today, we're diving deep into the world of meditation,
Great.
specifically how it rewires our minds and bodies,
Right?
and whether the science actually backs up the hype.
Yeah.
You've sent over some really intriguing excerpts from The Science of Meditation by Daniel Goleman and Richard J. Davidson.
Uh-huh.
And let me tell you, it's already got me thinking differently about my own mental habits.
Interesting.
What's fascinating about Goleman and Davidson's approach
Yeah.
is that they don't just accept ancient wisdom at face value.
Yeah.
They're both longtime meditation practitioners and scientists, so they're really trying to bridge that gap between subjective experience and objective evidence.
I see what you mean.
Okay, so less woo-woo, more, wow, that's actually how the brain works.
Yeah.
I'm into it.
They want to understand the nuts and bolts of how different meditation practices impact our brains, our bodies, even our genes.
Oh, wow.
And that's what makes this deep dive so compelling.
So they kick things off by outlining two main paths of meditation, the deep path and the wide path.
Right.
What's the difference?
Think of the deep path as the path of profound transformation.
Okay.
The kind of transformation you see in, say, Tibetan yogis who dedicate their lives to intensive practice.
Interesting.
It's about cultivating qualities like selflessness and impartial compassion.
Yeah.
And it often requires a complete lifestyle shift.
So that's like level 1 on the deep path, the full monastic immersion.
Right.
But what about those of us who aren't ready to trade our genes for robes and head for a mountaintop retreat?
That's where level 2 comes in.
Okay.
It's where these ancient traditions have been adapted for a Western context.
Yeah.
You still retain the core practices, but it might not require such a dramatic lifestyle change.
Got it.
Yeah.
So still intense, but maybe a bit more accessible for the modern-day seeker.
Right.
And what about this wide path?
The wide path is all about bringing the practical benefits of meditation to everyday life.
Yeah.
It's more about stress reduction,
Hmm.
improving focus, enhancing emotional regulation.
Yeah.
Things that can benefit anyone, regardless of their spiritual beliefs or lifestyle.
Okay, that's definitely more my speed.
Sure.
What does that look like in practice?
Level 3 in the wide path is where practices become secularized,
Okay.
stripped of their religious context and repackaged for a broader audience.
I see.
This is where you find things like mindfulness-based stress reduction, or MBSR, or transcendental meditation, or TM,
Yeah.
both of which have gained a lot of popularity in recent years.
So it's like meditation is going mainstream, right?
Yeah.
You see it popping up everywhere these days. Schools, workplaces, even healthcare settings.
Exactly.
And that's level 4 on the wide path.
Yeah.
The integration of these practices into various institutions and systems.
Yeah.
It's really exciting to see how meditation is being embraced by mainstream culture.
Yeah, it really is.
This is all really helpful context, but let's get to the heart of the matter.
Oh.
What does the science actually say about meditation's effects? They make this bold claim that meditation can lead to altered traits. Are we talking temporary relaxation or something more fundamental?
It's not just about feeling calm in the moment.
So more than that.
Goleman and Davidson argue that meditation can lead to enduring changes in how we think, feel, and behave.
Wow.
They call these altered traits,
Oh.
lasting shifts in personality and well-being.
Hold on. Are they saying that meditation can actually rewire our brains?
That sounds pretty radical.
That's exactly what the research suggests.
Really?
And it makes sense when you consider the concept of neuroplasticity,
Okay.
the brain's ability to change its structure and function based on experience.
Okay, I'm familiar with neuroplasticity,
Yeah.
but I usually associate it with things like learning a new language or recovering from a brain injury.
Uh-huh.
How does meditation fit into that picture?
Just like learning a new skill or recovering from an injury,
Yeah.
meditation is essentially a form of mental training. Oh.
And just as physical exercise strengthens and shapes our muscles,
Right.
mental training can strengthen and shape our neural pathways.
I see.
It's about intentionally cultivating certain mental states and habits.
Okay.
And over time, those changes become ingrained in our brains.
So we're not just quieting the mind, we're actually changing its underlying structure.
Right.
That's kind of mind-blowing.
It really is amazing.
But I imagine this idea was met with some skepticism when Goleman and Davidson started exploring it back in the 1970s.
Absolutely.
Red.
Back then, the scientific community had a very different view of the brain.
Uh-huh.
It was seen as relatively fixed and unchanging after a certain age.
Hmm.
The idea that mental training could lead to lasting physical changes in the brain was pretty revolutionary.
So they were real pioneers in this field.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Their early research faced many challenges.
Like what?
Brain imaging technology was in its infancy, so they had to rely on less sophisticated methods like measuring heart rate and sweat response to gauge stress levels.
Yeah. Interesting.
They were also dealing with a lack of standardized definitions and practices, which made it difficult to compare different studies and draw firm conclusions.
So it was a bit like navigating uncharted territory.
Exactly.
Wow.
They were figuring things out as they went along, and their early work, even with its limitations, helped to pave the way for the explosion of research we're seeing today.
And I'm guessing that the emergence of neuroplasticity as a widely accepted scientific principle was a major turning point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It provided a solid scientific framework for understanding how meditation could lead to lasting changes in the brain. As more research emerged showing how experiences like learning, practicing a skill, or even recovering from injury could alter the brain, the idea that mental training could also induce change became much more plausible.
I remember reading about how the brains of deaf individuals rewire themselves to process visual information in the areas that would normally be used for hearing.
Right.
It's incredible how adaptable the brain is.
It really is.
And that same capacity for adaptation is at play when we engage in practices like meditation.
Exactly.
So with this new understanding of neuroplasticity, how did the research on meditation evolve?
Wow.
What specific areas of the brain did scientists start to focus on?
One of the first areas of focus was stress.
Okay.
Goleman and Davidson were particularly interested in how meditation could help people regulate their stress response, and they conducted some of the early studies in this area.
That makes sense, given that stress reduction is one of the most common reasons people turn to meditation in the first place.
Right.
What did they find?
One of their key findings was that mindfulness-based practices like MBSR can reduce activity in the amygdala, the part of the brain that acts as our threat detector.
Okay, so instead of just feeling calmer on a subjective level, they were actually seeing changes in brain activity.
Exactly.
Wow.
And this wasn't just a temporary effect.
Really?
They found that with consistent practice, these changes could become more enduring. In other words, meditation wasn't just helping people cope with stress in the moment.
Yeah.
It was actually rewiring their brains to be less reactive to stress in general.
So we're not just putting a Band-Aid on the problem, we're actually addressing the root cause.
Right.
It's a pretty big deal.
It is.
And the research in this area has continued to grow with studies using more sophisticated brain imaging techniques and standardized stress tests like the Trier-Social Stress Test, or TSST, to confirm these findings.
Exactly.
Okay, so they found that meditation can literally change how our brains respond to stress.
Yeah.
What else are they looking at?
Another area of interest was compassion and empathy. They were curious about whether certain meditation practices could actually enhance these qualities. And they conducted studies using loving-kindness meditation, a practice that involves cultivating feelings of love, compassion, and goodwill towards oneself and others.
That's fascinating. Did they find that these practices actually had an impact on the brain?
Yes. They found that loving-kindness meditation increased activity in brain regions associated with positive emotions, empathy, and caregiving.
Wow.
In other words, it wasn't just a feel-good exercise. It was actually changing the way people's brains processed emotions and responded to others.
This is all so incredibly compelling.
It is, yeah.
It's like we're finally starting to understand the mechanisms behind what ancient traditions have known for centuries.
Yeah.
And we've only just scratched the surface of what Goleman and Davidson cover in their book.
Right?
They also delve into the effects of meditation on attention, cognitive control, even our sense of self.
It's right.
Okay, you've definitely piqued my curiosity. I can't wait to hear more about those findings.
Right.
But first, why don't we take a quick break to let all of this sink in?
Sounds good. So let's explore one of the most intriguing aspects of meditation,
Okay.
its impact on our sense of self.
Interesting.
Meditation, especially long-term practice, can shift how we experience that I feeling and quiet the mind's tendency to get caught in self-focused loops.
This is where things get a bit philosophical, isn't it? I mean, we're talking about the nature of identity, who we really are at our core.
Exactly. And meditation offers a unique perspective on this age-old question.
Okay.
It doesn't erase the self,
Okay.
but it helps us see that our sense of me is more fluid and constructed than we might realize.
You know, I often picture meditation as this state of blissful silence, but my mind rarely cooperates.
Right.
It's more like a constant chatter of thoughts, worries, and to-do lists.
You're describing the default mode network in action.
The what?
It's this network of brain regions that becomes active when we're not focused on a specific task. It's like our brain's autopilot, always churning away in the background.
So it's not just me. Everyone's brain is doing this.
To some extent, yes. And this mind wandering is often linked to negative self-talk.
Yeah.
Those thoughts like, am I good enough? Or what if I mess up?
Oh, yeah.
That's the source of a lot of our everyday anxiety and self-doubt.
So how does meditation help? Does it shut down the default mode network completely?
Not entirely, but it can quiet it down significantly.
Okay.
Practices that involve focused attention, like concentrating on your breath or a mantra,
Right.
have been shown to reduce activity in the default mode network.
So it's not about suppressing thoughts altogether. It's more about shifting our relationship to them.
Exactly. And this can lead to a sense of lightness.
Okay.
A detachment from those self-focused narratives that can be so consuming.
Yeah.
It's like we're stepping back from the constant chatter and observing it with more spaciousness and less judgment.
Goleman and Davidson even talk about the idea of deconstructing the self through meditation.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty radical.
It is in a way. It's not about erasing our personality or denying our individual experiences. It's more about recognizing that our sense of self is a composite, a collection of thoughts, feelings, and experiences that are constantly changing.
So rather than clinging to a fixed identity, we're learning to see the self as something more fluid and impermanent.
Precisely.
Okay.
And this can be incredibly liberating.
How so?
It frees us from the suffering that comes from clinging to a rigid sense of who we are. It allows us to be more open to new experiences and perspectives.
You know, I'm starting to see how all of this connects back to those altered traits we talked about earlier. If we're shifting our relationship to our thoughts and our sense of self, that's bound to have ripple effects throughout our lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is where the research on highly experienced meditators, those Tibetan yogis we mentioned, gets really fascinating.
Okay.
They seem to embody these altered traits to an extraordinary degree.
Okay, let's talk about the yogi's brain. What have scientists discovered about these long-term practitioners?
Well, they found some truly remarkable things.
Like what?
For example, these yogis exhibit extraordinary levels of gamma brainwave activity, which is associated with heightened awareness focus and a sense of interconnectedness.
It's like they're operating on a whole other level of consciousness. Is this something that's innate to them, or is it a result of their dedicated practice?
That's the million-dollar question. While there may be some individual predispositions, the research suggests that these brain patterns are largely cultivated through years of intensive meditation practice.
Wow.
They've essentially trained their brains to function in ways that most of us can only imagine.
What other unique abilities have they observed?
They've also found that these yogis have remarkable control over their autonomic nervous system.
Okay.
The system that regulates things like heart rate, breathing, and body temperature.
Right.
There's even a documented case of a yogi who was able to intentionally raise his body temperature using only his mind.
Wait, seriously? That sounds like something out of a superhero movie.
It does, doesn't it? Of course, these are extreme cases, and we can't necessarily extrapolate these findings to the average person who meditates for a few minutes a day.
Right. I'm probably not going to develop telekinetic powers anytime soon.
Totally not.
But what's exciting is that this research suggests the potential for significant brain changes with long-term meditation practice. It gives us a glimpse into the vast possibilities of human consciousness and what we might be capable of achieving.
Exactly.
So maybe we all have hidden superpowers waiting to be unlocked.
Perhaps. But even without the superpowers, the research is pretty clear that meditation offers a wide range of benefits for both our mental and physical health.
Okay, let's talk about those health benefits.
Sure.
Goleman and Davidson seem to be cautiously optimistic about the potential of meditation to improve our well-being.
Yeah.
What's the current state of the research in this area?
They acknowledge that there's a lot of hype out there,
Right.
and that some of the claims about meditation's healing powers haven't been fully substantiated. But there's also a growing body of evidence suggesting that meditation can have a positive impact on a variety of health conditions.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, one area where the research is quite strong is in the realm of inflammation.
Okay.
Studies have shown that meditation, particularly mindfulness-based practices, can reduce inflammation in the body.
I know inflammation is linked to a lot of chronic diseases, but remind me why that's so important.
Chronic inflammation is essentially a state of constant low-grade activation of the immune system.
Okay.
And over time, this can damage tissues and organs,
Right.
increasing the risk of developing conditions like heart disease, cancer, autoimmune disorders, and even Alzheimer's disease.
So if meditation can help reduce inflammation, it could potentially have a protective effect against these diseases.
That's the idea.
Hmm.
It's not a guaranteed preventative measure,
Right.
but the research is certainly promising.
What about other health benefits? What else has been well studied?
Another area where the research is quite compelling is cardiovascular health.
Okay.
Studies have shown that meditation can lower blood pressure,
Uh-huh.
improve heart rate variability, which is a measure of the heart's resilience and adaptability,
Right.
and even reduce the risk of heart attack and stroke.
Wow. This is starting to sound like a miracle cure.
Let's not get carried away.
Uh-huh. Okay.
It's not a cure-all, and more research is always needed. But the evidence does suggest that meditation can be a powerful tool for improving our cardiovascular health and overall well-being.
I'm also curious about the claims that meditation can slow down aging. Is there
Okay.
any scientific basis for that?
That's an area where the research is still emerging, but there are some intriguing findings.
Okay.
For example, studies have shown that meditation can protect telomeres,
Okay.
which are the protective caps on the ends of our chromosomes.
I remember reading about telomeres. They're like the little clocks in our cells that determine how long we live, right?
Exactly.
Wow.
As we age, our telomeres naturally shorten,
Yeah.
but meditation seems to have a protective effect, slowing down that shortening process.
So meditation might not make us immortal, but it could potentially help us age more gracefully and healthfully.
That's a possibility.
Hmm.
But it's important to emphasize that more research is needed to confirm these findings.
Okay.
We need to be cautious about overstating the benefits.
Okay, fair enough. But even if meditation doesn't make us live forever, it sounds like it can have a pretty profound impact on our health and longevity.
Right.
And what's really exciting is that these benefits are accessible to anyone. You don't
Okay.
have to be a monk or a yogi to experience them.
That's one of the most hopeful messages of Goleman and Davidson's work.
Uh-huh.
Meditation is a practice that can be integrated into everyday life, and it has the potential to transform our health,
Right.
our minds, and ultimately our world.
We've talked a lot about different types of meditation, but I'm also curious about its role in psychotherapy.
Okay.
Goleman and Davidson mention mindfulness-based therapies,
Right.
which sound like a fascinating blend of Eastern wisdom and Western psychology.
Yes, this is a rapidly growing field,
Uh-huh.
and the research is quite promising.
Okay.
Mindfulness-based therapies like mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, or MBCT,
Yeah.
integrate meditation practices with cognitive therapy techniques to address mental health issues like depression, anxiety, and PTSD.
So instead of just talking about our problems, we're learning to observe our thoughts and feelings with more awareness and less judgment.
That's a key component,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
this can be incredibly helpful for people who are struggling with negative thought patterns or emotional reactivity.
Uh-huh.
Instead of getting caught in those thought loops,
Right.
they're learning to step back, observe them with more objectivity,
Yeah.
and choose more skillful responses.
Does it actually work? Have studies shown that these therapies are effective?
The early research is very encouraging.
Okay.
For example, studies have shown that MBCT can be as effective as medication in preventing relapse in people with major depression.
Wow.
And it's showing promise for a range of other conditions, including anxiety disorders, chronic pain, and even addiction.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
remarkable. It sounds like a powerful alternative or complement to traditional treatments.
It's not meant to replace traditional therapies entirely,
Okay.
but it can be a valuable addition to a comprehensive treatment plan.
Yeah.
And for some people, it may be a preferred approach, especially if they're looking for more holistic or non-pharmaceutical options.
Goleman and Davidson also discussed the use of meditation in treating PTSD,
Right.
a condition that's unfortunately becoming increasingly prevalent,
Yeah.
especially among veterans.
It's a debilitating condition, and traditional treatments aren't always effective.
Right.
But there's growing interest in using meditation,
Yeah.
particularly loving-kindness meditation, as a way to help people with PTSD.
That's interesting. How can loving-kindness meditation help someone who's dealing with the trauma of war or other deeply disturbing experiences?
PTSD often involves feelings of anger, fear, distrust,
Yeah.
and a sense of being constantly on edge.
Right.
Loving-kindness meditation cultivates feelings of compassion, empathy, and forgiveness, both towards oneself and others. It helps to create a sense of safety and connection.
So it's about shifting from a place of negativity and fear to a place of love and acceptance.
Exactly. And this can be incredibly healing for people who have experienced trauma. It helps to soften the edges of those difficult emotions and create a sense of inner peace and self-compassion.
Yeah.
It allows them to re-engage with the world from a place of greater security and connection.
Has research shown that this actually works for people with PTSD?
The research on this is still preliminary,
Mm.
but the early findings are very promising.
Yeah.
For example, studies have shown that loving-kindness meditation can reduce PTSD symptoms, including flashbacks, nightmares, hypervigilance, and emotional reactivity.
It sounds like meditation offers a whole new way of approaching trauma recovery, one that focuses on cultivating inner resources and resilience.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And it's not just about coping with the symptoms.
Right.
It's about fostering a deeper sense of healing and wholeness.
It's important to remember that meditation is not a quick fix for any condition.
Absolutely.
It takes time and effort to develop these skills and experience these benefits.
It's a practice, not a magic bullet.
Right.
And it requires patience, commitment, and a willingness to be present with whatever arises,
Yeah.
both the pleasant and the unpleasant.
Okay.
But the rewards are well worth the effort.
This has been an incredible exploration so far.
That really has.
We've covered so much ground, from the ancient roots of meditation to the cutting-edge neuroscience that's revealing its profound effects on the brain and body. I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of what meditation is and what it can do.
It's an ever-evolving field, and there's always more to discover.
Right.
But what's clear is that meditation is not just some esoteric practice reserved for monks and mystics.
Yeah.
It's a tool that's available to all of us. And it has the potential to transform our lives in profound ways.
This deep dive has certainly sparked my curiosity, and I'm eager to learn more about the future of this field.
Great.
What exciting developments are on the horizon?
The future of contemplative science is brimming with possibilities. We're only just beginning to scratch the surface of what we can learn about the transformative power of meditation.
Okay, let's dive into that next. What's coming up in the world of meditation research and practice? So we've explored the science behind meditation, the potential benefits, and even glimpsed the extraordinary abilities of long-term practitioners.
Right.
What's next for this field? Where do you see the future of contemplative science heading?
What's truly exciting is that we're still in the early stages of understanding the full potential of meditation.
Yeah.
There's so much more to uncover about how it impacts the brain, the body, even our genes. It feels like we're on the cusp of a major shift in how we approach well-being and human potential.
I'm sensing that optimism, too.
Yeah.
It feels like meditation is moving beyond the fringes and into mainstream acceptance. We're already seeing mindfulness practices integrated into healthcare education in the workplace.
Exactly. And as the research continues to validate the benefits,
Yeah.
I think we'll see even wider adoption of these practices. Goldman and Davidson seem particularly passionate about the potential for contemplative science to revolutionize education.
Okay.
They imagine a world where children are taught not just academic skills, but also the skills for cultivating attention, kindness, and emotional regulation.
Wow, that would be a game changer. Can you imagine a generation growing up with those tools at their fingertips?
Right.
It could fundamentally shift the way we interact with each other and with the world.
Absolutely. And there are already some promising programs being developed in this area.
Oh, really?
For example, they describe a kindness curriculum that teaches young children mindfulness, empathy, and gratitude. Imagine the ripple effects if these skills were woven into the fabric of our education system.
It's like we're talking about planting seeds for a more compassionate and mindful society.
Yeah.
What an inspiring vision.
It is. And it's not just limited to education.
Okay.
Contemplative science has the potential to inform every aspect of our lives, from how we work to how we relate to each other and to the planet.
They even mention using video games to teach meditation skills.
Yeah.
Now that's thinking outside the box.
It is.
It shows how adaptable these practices can be.
It speaks the creativity and innovation within this field. Researchers are finding new and engaging ways to make these practices accessible to everyone, regardless of age background or tech savviness.
And speaking of technology, it seems to be playing an increasingly important role in the future of contemplative science.
Right.
They mention these neurofeedback devices that can actually measure brainwave activity during meditation.
Yes, and this technology is becoming increasingly sophisticated and affordable.
Oh,
It allows people to get real-time feedback on their meditation practice, to see how their brainwaves are changing in response to different techniques. That kind of feedback can be incredibly helpful for learning and motivation.
It's like having a personal meditation coach right there in your pocket.
Yeah.
It makes the practice more tangible and less mysterious.
Exactly. And who knows what other technological advancements we'll see in the coming years. Right.
There's incredible potential for virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and other emerging technologies to enhance our understanding and practice of meditation.
This is all incredibly exciting.
It is.
But as with any powerful tool,
Yeah.
I wonder about the potential downsides. Are there any risks or challenges we should be aware of as meditation becomes more mainstream?
That's a great question, and it's important to be aware of the potential pitfalls.
Right.
One risk is that the commercialization of meditation could lead to a dilution of the practice or even exploitation. We're already seeing a proliferation of apps, products, and quick-fix solutions that promise enlightenment in a bottle.
It's easy to get swept up in the hype, especially when we're bombarded with marketing messages promising instant transformation.
It's crucial to be discerning and to approach these things with a critical eye.
Yeah.
Remember, meditation is a practice, not a product.
Right.
It takes time, effort, and commitment to cultivate the skills and reap the benefits. So it's about finding a teacher or tradition that resonates with you rather than just jumping on the latest trend.
Absolutely. It's about finding an approach that feels authentic and sustainable for you.
Yeah.
Rather than seeking a quick fix.
Okay.
And it's equally important to remember that meditation is not a substitute for professional help if you're struggling with mental health issues.
Right. If you're experiencing serious symptoms of anxiety, depression, or PTSD,
Yeah.
it's essential to seek guidance from a qualified therapist or psychiatrist.
Meditation can be a wonderful complement to therapy, but it's not a replacement.
Okay.
It's about knowing when to seek professional support and when to use meditation as a tool for personal growth and well-being.
This deep dive has truly been an eye-opening experience.
It has.
It feels like we've only just begun to explore the vast and multifaceted world of meditation.
Right.
What's the biggest takeaway for you? What's stuck with you the most?
For me, it's the sheer potential for transformation. The science is showing us that meditation is not just about relaxation or stress reduction.
Yeah.
It's about fundamentally rewiring our brains,
Yeah.
cultivating new ways of being, and ultimately awakening to our full human potential.
I love that.
Me too.
Awakening to our full human potential.
Yeah.
And the most inspiring part is that this potential lies within each and every one of us.
Right.
It's just waiting to be unlocked.
And the journey is just beginning.
Wow.
Who knows what incredible discoveries and insights await us as the field of contemplative science continues to unfold.
So to our listener,
Yeah.
what will you take away from this deep dive? What kind of meditation practice calls to you?
Right.
What new insights will you integrate into your life?
Good questions.
We encourage you to explore the resources mentioned in the science of meditation and perhaps even experiment with a few different practices to find what resonates best with you. After all, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, or perhaps in this case, a single breath. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of meditation.